All right, welcome everyone. This is a program subcommittee meeting. It is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. This is a remote-only meeting. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allows, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. And so there's not an in-person meeting. So I will call this meeting to order. We don't need to vote to do that. So we have 3 policies on the agenda for tonight. Ben and Amy, I saw that the packet is not in the same order as the reports listed on the agenda, so I wanted to just see how you wanna do them.
Yeah, so what would be great is to go about the admissions of students to elementary school. So that's the inter-district school choice, JF first,
Okay,
and then JFBB, which is inter-district, so between school district school choice.
yep,
Then file AC, which is non-discrimination and harassment, and that's where we lay out the Title IX changes. So
okay,
can we go that order?
yep, that sounds great.
So I'll jump in. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. Are folks seeing a slideshow?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we can see it. I can see it.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, so these are just the 3 ones we just went through. Those will be the 3 ones we're dealing with tonight. So I will be sort of doing a short, like a slide or 2 on the first 2. I'm gonna slide on the first one and then talk about the changes, look at the language. I'll also share the language, which you have in your packet, and then do the same thing with JFBB. Talk about, we have a couple of slides on what changes and then how we got here on JFBB, and then go through show you the language that's in the packet, and then Amy will do something similar with file AC. So hold on here. Okay, so so for some reason I'm just not seeing. I don't know what's going on here.
I'm seeing it.
Did it advance to the
Yep.
okay, right, okay, good. So all right, so just in terms of so this is the admission of students to elementary schools. A specific part of that, it's section 5.3. It relates to section 5 really is about the intra-district school choice. Which is the students who live in Gloucester who want to go to a different elementary school than their catchment area, than their neighborhood school, so to speak. Okay. And what we realized, what we experienced rather, this past year, and it have in the past, but it really sort of caused some difficulty, some ongoing difficulty, was that we've been just making these decisions too early in August. And what that means is that we'll make decisions on which students from outside the catchment area will be going to. And we're just this is just for kindergarten, okay? This is not for the other grades. The other grades we decide earlier, and that's in the policy, okay? The specifically kindergarten directs it to be between August 1st and 10th. And we've decided that's too early. We've been doing that this most recent year. We did that, and because of that, and then we have lots of late enrollments or just enrollments, just happen later in August after those decisions are made. So we make decisions sort of based on our best information. We don't fill the elementary student classrooms at that point typically for any given school because of school choice. We typically leave some spaces, but this year that still caused large kindergarten classroom sizes at one school at Plum Cove. Okay, we got up to 23 and 24, which is not a place we want to be. Okay, and we left quite a bit of room. Okay, so that we had so many sort of late enrollees at Plum Cove, which happens in other schools as well, but it changes year to year, so it's hard to predict. And we don't want to be in that situation again, because at this point, those classrooms then will be 23, 24 or more, all the way through the Plum Cove experience. Okay,
Right.
those are some of the largest elementary class size in the district. Okay, typically we have smaller ones. Okay, 21, 20, and that's really where we want to be. We don't have to be 23 and 24. We are because we accepted so many people into school choice. The catchment area itself would not have that high a number. Okay, it also would have benefited at this point Beaman, where the catchment area the folks were in, would be a little higher than it is right now, and that also would be better for Beaman too. So the simple proposal is just to make it the language we have, and as we'll talk about when we come to the program subcommittee with policy changes, the first stab at it is the first stab at it, and then we can make changes based on what the committee is interested in, or revisions, that sort of stuff. And so tonight is about on this and the other policies, making sure you understand what the changes are, why we're making the changes, and then also any suggestions you have on what we put forth as a draft. Okay, so the proposed revision is right here. It would that those decisions for kindergarten students we made no earlier than August 20th and no later than the beginning of school. The reason for the no earlier is obviously this is a challenging time for parents, especially parents of kindergartners, especially if it's your first kindergartner. So we want to be clear about when we would communicate. And if you just say something vague like late August or mid-August, then that lack of clarity leads to a lot of questions, phone calls, concerns. What does it mean? What does mid-August mean? What does late August mean? So we try to put a date here, so people know when they can expect it, basically, or when they can expect it, and when they can't expect it, really. So which is before August 20th. So we think those would be good timing, but happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just
Go
a
ahead.
quick one, does this address non-residents, like out of district
No,
placement?
this is
How does that-
intra-district, only
No,
in
no.
district.
Yeah, so that's stated somewhere earlier in the document?
It's
Yeah,
a,
there's a whole different policy, JFBB, which is on the interdistrict, and that's the
Okay, yeah.
which we'll also be talking about tonight, but not right now.
Okay,
Yeah, it's very clear. This is just those folks who are inside Gloucester, live inside Gloucester.
Jeremy, do you have anything?
I mean, I just thought August 20th was kind of late, but obviously there's thinking behind it that I'm acclimating to. So what Ben's laid out makes sense, and especially having open enrollment without a date, does cause congestion. So.
All right, I have a few questions sort of related to what you just said, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
hold on.
So-
I didn't hear anything he said, but go ahead and reiterate what he said. Would you?
He was just saying, what Jeremy, he didn't have a question. He just said he thought that date seemed late, but he understood why. That's sort of the
Yeah,
concise
Okay,
thing. So I too understand the reason to move it later from obviously from populating our schools. And I am wondering for kindergarten families, I mean, sometimes school starts at the end of August.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. Obviously it's tricky because clearly we knew what had happened at Plum Cove this year, and obviously it feels like there's always late enrollments for kindergarten. So that seems like a consistent issue. But between August 20th and August 28th is a pretty narrow window, potentially for a family preparing for a kindergartner. So I'm sort of just raising that as a question. My other question, or I'm raising that just as a point. The other question is for children who are kindergartners, but who have a sibling in the school they're trying to go into. How does this impact? Is this the same for them? They have no, is there anything special for those kids who already have a sibling there, or?
No, in terms of no, there wouldn't be a different timeline. It was siblings that actually caused, the combination, sorry, of accepting siblings and then also the late enrollments sort of was the cause of this. So yeah. So there's that's part of the challenges, but there's no separate deadline for siblings. There has not been, because ultimately, so there has never been a separate deadline for siblings. or separate notification, timeline.
Right. It's not the same as for in other districts, like inter-district school choice, where if a sibling is there, sometimes they have preference, but that's not
Oh,
the
no,
same.
no,
So
folks
they
have
still have
preference.
preference.
Yeah, they have preference. They have preference. They just don't have different notification timeline.
Okay, so they have preference, but not different notification time. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like to me like there'd have to be a lot of communication around this, because this is this is something that potentially makes doing intra-district school choice more difficult for a family, right? Because they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of 10 days, 10 days, maybe a little bit more, so they still are finding out, late. We have to advantage the folks who live in the catchment area. They're the highest priority, first priority, and that's also laid out in the school committee policy, right? So they are asking to do something sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, out of the norm. So,
Right.
it is something that we have to, yeah. So it's, just to be clear, they're already enrolled in their home school, in their catchment area school. They're not like hanging out. Am I going to go to school or not? They're enrolled,
Right.
and then and the enrollment is switched. So, but it's true that there is, it is delaying the notice a little bit. Sometimes what happens is folks, when they know when they'll, find out by, that helps them quite a bit. And I wouldn't see a need to go past August 20th. I don't typically see that, we did build some flexibility in the language here. But we do, that's just ultimately what we need, is we want to have this balance between flexibility. So we make sure we're not, overcrowding a kindergarten classroom, and also balancing, the need for families to know, they're just trying to sort of thread that needle basically, and realize through our experiences past year that we were actually setting ourselves up for a difficult situation that actually then continues for up to 5 or 6 years, honestly.
Right.
Class size that big.
Right. Sure. Just one last question. The no earlier than August 20th, but no later than the beginning of school.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean they could be told the first day of school?
That would never be the intention, but it does give us that flexibility.
Okay.
Could we at least say like the day before?
Oh, Keith, you're breaking up.
Is there, I'm assuming there's wiggle room at all? Or, I mean, I'm always afraid of the family that misses the date, and obviously they'll be placed, but yeah.
So there's, in the policy, there is, deadline earlier in May for actually applying for school choice. Okay. And that's laid out both on the policy, but also our website. We're really clear about that. That time frame is basically begins now and goes into May, when you can apply for school choice, intra-district. Okay. And we don't consider late requests.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's very important. When we have consider late requests, then it's essentially tantamount to not having any deadline at all. And that gets us in a lot of hot water. And we certainly can't advantage one family over another. One family didn't meet the deadline, or two families didn't meet the deadline. We treat one differently than the other. I do not want to do that. We don't want to do that.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Could we, I'm wondering, just because I'm a little concerned about the no later than the beginning of school piece, could we add something that says, like, every attempt will be made to notify families,
As close to August 20th as possible, that sort of thing.
yeah, or something like that.
Something like that. Yep. I mean, yep. And Justin, and at this point, what we're really doing is as opposed to motions, this is sort of advising us on language, and then, we can change it. And then
Right.
the second reading, once we bring something back, sir, then if you want to, yeah, it's just, yeah, so at this point, there's no motion necessary to revise it.
Okay.
Advise us, okay?
All right. So we're not going to vote on this tonight. We'll wait for second reading. Okay.
I think that's right.
Okay.
So,
Can I, before I freeze up again,
Yep.
I'd feel more comfortable rather than the first day of school being 24 hours before the first day of school.
Did you
I mean,
hear what I tried to add? Did you hear what I said?
yeah, I did. As close to
Okay.
the first day of school.
Every attempt,
I think that's still a little vague.
no, she said different than that.
I
I
didn't say
mean,
that. I said every attempt will be made to notify families as close to August 20th as possible.
well, yeah, close to August 20th as possible, which is fine and dandy, but we still have that window that does not exclude the possibility that it would be the day of school.
Yeah, I mean, we can put a day before school, or, we can put 2 days
I
before
would say,
school.
yeah, I think, yeah, 24 hours before the first day of school, I'd feel more comfortable. Parents have a little time to plan their day, just like a snow day at least.
Yep, yeah,
I would say a day, not 24 hours, because 24 hours could be a Sunday or
yeah.
Okay.
so a day,
However you think.
A school day.
a school day.
Well, it's not school though.
No, a working day, or I don't know how you want to
Working,
say
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
yeah,
Weekday,
yeah,
a
yeah.
weekday. But does that, I mean, are you really in the position? I understand we want as much flexibility as possible here, but are we really in the position where the day before school, where I know it can happen, but
Oh, it definitely happens. We enroll people, enrollment really never stops, first of all, but really, the first week plus of school, we're getting plenty of enrollments,
yeah, okay.
including kindergarten. Yeah, it definitely happens.
Okay.
So we'll make the changes around, every effort will be made to notify families as close to August 20th as possible. And
Mhm.
then some version of the weekday, or, one day before the beginning of school.
Right. Anything else, guys?
I'm doing terrible here. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Jeremy, anything from you?
No, I like the language change. I think it's clear, and yeah, I think it's good. It'll be good to
Okay,
bring this before.
okay.
Thank you for that. We'll go on. So now we're gonna switch to interdistrict. So this is a different policy. This is one where any age student who doesn't live in Gloucester can apply to attend school in Gloucester. Then if they're accepted by us, they're in what's known as a sort of statewide school choice policy. And the reason there's a state role in this is because the state, transfers money from one district to another for that student. Okay, so because it's that state program, so to speak, I mean, and the reason it's a state program is so there's equity in terms of rules across districts. Okay, there are guidelines and guidance and regulations from Department of Education that we need to abide by. Okay, so what I have here is this is a quick summary of how we got to this point. Okay. In April 2023, so almost 2 years ago, the program subcommittee considered amending the policy because there are some students who are moving out, and they were asking if they could continue attending the school until the end of the year, or if they could become school choice students at that point and apply to school choice. Okay. At that point, up to this day, school choice, the language in the policy, JFBB, limits when people can apply for school choice for good reasons. But anyway, we later that year and so there was some look at the policy at that point. There wasn't any action taken. There was some draft sort of considered, but no action was taken on that. At that point, a family that was involved in this applied for school choice after they moved away from the district. Okay, and that process then got DESE involved in reviewing our school choice policy sort of later that year. Okay, something that happens from time to time for number of different reasons. And by looking at it, they advised us that the school committee policy was not in alignment with the school choice regulations, specifically an FAQ that was published in 2019. Okay. And so they required a change for us to make a change I'll talk about in a moment, to make our policy to make admission less restrictive. So make our policy in terms of criteria on admission, make it less restrictive. Okay. So this change now, which I'm going to share with you, is designed to meet what DESE asked us to do, basically, in terms of being in alignment with the FAQ. So in terms of FAQ, and the FAQ is in your packet. It's lots of pages, but I'm sort of summarizing a few of the areas which are relevant to the changes that we're proposing in the policy. Okay. So first and foremost, districts can limit admission of school choice students to specific grades or programs or schools, and also limit the number of students admitted into specific grades, programs, or schools. And that really is the only way, if the school committee chooses to participate in the school choice program, that's the only way you can have any limitations on the numbers of kids or where you set them into, is by limiting the number or limiting the places. So we could say, for example, to give me examples, we could say students aren't accepted into, won't be accepted into kindergarten this year, or students won't be accepted into the middle school this year, or we'll have only 5 students admitted into first grade across the whole district, that sort of thing. It's those sorts of limitations that the school committee and the administration really can place sort of on an ongoing basis or a year-to-year basis, okay? But that's the only way. You can't have any criteria for acceptance that refuse acceptance for a student who applies by considering their disciplinary record at their prior district or their attendance record, and particularly definitely not with the students with disabilities. You can't find out what their disability is and then deny them. We had in our policy that we would consider a student's disciplinary record and attendance record. Okay, and that's specifically what DESE said to us, like, that's got to go, basically. Okay. So that's sort of, criteria for acceptance and any limits that the committees or administration can place on the process. Ultimately, the only way, so for example, if you are placing limits on either a grade, a program, or a school, and there are more applicants for that grade, program, or school, then at that point you have a lottery, basically, for a blind lottery for, say you have 7 applicants for middle school, and we've identified there's only going to be 4 spaces we want to open up. Then you have a lottery, and the first 4 picked get those spots. Okay. And then there's the timing of the school choice lottery. What DESE says, there needs to be 2 of them. One is before July 1st each year, and then again at some point before November 1st. Okay. So that's the sort of information in the FAQ that's gonna, that is sort of like, you'll see it will be reflected in some of the changes we're proposing in the policy. Okay, let me pause there, see any questions just about this information here and what it means, and making sense of it in terms of what DESE says on their FAQ.
Does anyone have a question? I do, but I'm wondering if
If I don't get
go ahead.
Steve, you should turn off your video. Turn off your video.
Yeah,
Might help
chopped up here, so the time, let me see. Yeah, I just did that. Okay. I'm still there. Timing for school choice lottery before July 1st. So if somebody comes in, just moved, say a guy got a job, he's got a family, he moves to Gloucester, and
No, this isn't moving to Gloucester. These are people from outside Gloucester. These are people who
okay. Sorry, yeah, I misunderstood. So people in other districts residing in other towns would want to come to our school. Okay, so they I just want to make sure we're not excluding kids from being in a school at all. Yeah, so they could be in their own schools. Okay, that answers my question.
Jeremy, do you have anything?
No, keeping in line with DESI, obviously, is the best due diligence we can do. I don't have. I'm
Okay,
just making sense of it, and it checks my boxes, so I don't have any questions
okay.
for
My one
this slide.
question, Ben, is
Yeah.
just the November, why would there be a second lottery that has to be within the school year? That
Yeah,
part I don't.
so let's get to this is just what DESI lays out. And
Okay,
the changes, in a moment, when we look at the proposed changes,
right,
then we'll, talk through what our deadlines would be, or when our lottery,
okay,
lottery might happen, okay?
okay.
Um, okay, any questions before I go to the document, which has the draft revisions in it?
No, I think we can go to the document.
All right. And Laura, if you can just help me remember, before, at some point, I do want to talk about the change that was considered back in April of 2023, which you have,
Yep,
but I just, it's, I want to
yes,
discuss that. So let me stop this. Well, hold on,
yep,
actually, let me just see. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll describe these changes and then we'll look at them in the language, okay? But first I'll just describe them through this presentation, okay? So,
mhm,
criteria for selection, you heard we had to eliminate the consideration of attendance and disciplinary record. We do that in the draft, okay? It's pretty clear. Timelines, identify the number of openings in a grade, program, or school by June 1st, okay? And that's, semi-arbitrary, okay, in the sense that, there's a lot of room in our middle school or high school, specifically for students, okay, but elementary are quite different, and I would say kindergarten's very different, okay. But I just want to but that's the timing when we would do that, and I think we're probably going to want to do that some more than we have in the past, okay. But we would have to, and that's the administration determining that, by June 1st, okay. Applications are accepted between March 7th and August 20th. And then we would end the practice of keeping school choice open through the first half of the year. Okay. So there would be, yep, that's right. So we would essentially, then no more applications would be considered after August 20th. Okay. One of the reasons for that is, if folks are considering school choice, coming into into laws from another place, we want that to be a consideration done in advance, okay, by the families, okay, as opposed to, I'm not having a bad year of someplace else. I want to get out of here and go there, okay. There are lots of reasons for things like that happening, but it's not something that is likely to be considered, more of an escape valve as instead of a purposeful, let's do this for whatever reasons a family might have. We don't need to know the reasons, but we want it to be a well considered choice as opposed to something that is sort of a a short-term rash decision based on circumstances that are happening right there, okay, in that school, okay. So with that, so that's why we're proposing that we have the applications instead of going into the first quarter of the year, that we resolve all of them prior to the beginning of the year. Okay, and that allows also folks who are coming into the district to have a good start at the beginning of the school year, ready to go, and we get to know them from the beginning, and they're not entering, partway through the school year and trying to get them up to speed. That's a much harder transition for students to make during the school year into sort of the school community and their classroom. Okay, this helps the students, to get to a stronger start. Okay. Sibling preference, this is just clarifying sibling preference language, not changing it, but it's clarifying it. So we're using the language that DESI has in their FAQ, and the DESI definition of what a sibling means, okay? And that's something I think for the committee to look closely at that language. We'll do that in a moment. And then reapplication is clarifying that students do not have to reapply. If you're accepted in, say, third grade into our schools from living outside of schools, you don't have to reapply every year. That was sort of ambiguous, both in the policy and also practice. So we want to clarify that families do not have to reapply. Really, what the policy says, in both state and local, is that once you're accepted into it, you are able to stay in the schools, even if the district decides not to continue to participate in the program. You're able to continue on. You're there, through your whole school career if you choose, basically. So let me go through each of these in the language now, and then I think that'll be a good time for folks to ask questions. Share something different here. Second here. I think be good. What do you see right now?
School choice
Many-
policy.
Good. Okay, great. Good. Okay.
We see many screens. We see like a whole bunch of your screens.
Cascading.
Okay, that's terrible.
No,
Okay.
no, we just see them behind each other. So you just
Oh,
need,
okay.
yeah.
Yep.
That one's in front. You just need to fill the screen with it or something.
Like that.
Yeah.
That better?
There you go. Yep.
All right. So let me just go up here. So again, this is in your packet. So by June 1st of every school year, the administration will determine the number of spaces of each school in our grade level. So that's that first bullet we talked about. And then it's clarifying that it's permissible for us to limit the admission of non-resident students to school choice to specific grades, programs, and schools. Again, that's what's allowable from DESE. Okay. One question I think we might consider is, just June. We could make that earlier, May 1st. I mean, it was May 1st. Okay. So there isn't necessarily any strong reason to change that. Sort of in some ways, as I look at this, I think maybe May 1st makes more sense, honestly. But that's just, that's sort of not arbitrary, but there isn't any strong case for May 1st or June 1st, basically. June 1st may be better in terms of aligning for the application process. Okay. I'll keep going unless folks want to stop. You see number 4 here is crossed out right there. For obvious reasons, it doesn't align. It's against the DESE regulations and guidance. This is the sibling definition that DESE is using. And so that's why I put it in there, and it's right from there. This is something that the committee, if you're not comfortable with any of your parts, we could adjust. But it's sort of like, this is like the minimum. You can have a more liberal definition of what sibling means, but you can't narrow it further than this. That makes sense. Let me pause there for folks to look at that. That's a little more language, a little more complicated.
I'm surprised at the step siblings and foster children language.
Yeah.
I don't know. That just I don't know why DESE would have that. Is there any clarification on that? Did that come up at all? Probably maybe not.
Yeah, no, it's really hard, and this is why we sort of had this is taking so long. It's really hard to get any response from DESE on any of this, very honestly. Don't mean to throw it really. So getting clarification isn't. It's very difficult, honestly, and very time consuming. So none on this further. I think one thing where you may have multiple families in a residence. Okay, that I think you always want to guard against that.
Right.
But I'm not sure this language is actually doing that. I mean, step siblings can be. I mean, I think you want to make sure it's done through marriage. And let me say this. See if I can say this in a way that, cousins there's level interpretation of cousins, of what cousins are, if you understand what I mean. Okay, we can't have it that a liberal interpretation of family members or siblings. Okay, it can't open up to anybody in the household if they're not related. I would say biologically or through marriage. Sibling obviously through marriage. So
yeah, and I would agree with that. I think step siblings feels there are people that I know of in this district with, blended families,
Right.
that are living as, that are a family. Foster children also, I mean, that's complicated, right? That's a legal, guardianship. Um, yeah, I'm not sure about excluding. I, I don't, I don't know enough about it, but I would say if there is a foster child living as a sibling with a family in a legal fostering situation, um, would we really want to prohibit that child from having a sibling preference? Ben, you have your mute on.
Thank you. Both of these, there's a legal,
Right,
there's a legal guardianship involved in both of these, foster children,
right,
stepchildren, right? And if it's stepchildren, step-siblings, sorry, there's at least typically, I think, I don't want to be wrong with this, but one of the parents has a legal guardianship of that child, you know. So I think
right,
we could probably go down that road of either, legal guardianship of the students, of living there, of the sibling,
right,
or share the same legal guardianship. Maybe it's share the same legal guardianship. Okay. Um, or step siblings or foster children are fit the bill, but there has to be some documentation of the legal relationship, that sort of thing.
right. I mean, for steps, I will just say, because I know this experience, like, uh, you don't, your step parent does not necessarily have you legally, but they're married to your parent.
Right, but that other parent should be
Right,
typically a
right,
biological parent if you're not, yeah, right.
right.
Otherwise
So
you're,
it's
yeah.
right. So it's just a little complicated, but um, yeah, I mean, uh, my gut would be to include those and to have, as you say, um, there's a legal document, there is a way to legally document these relationships. They're not sort of casual living in the same apartment kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's my feeling. I don't know if anyone else has a thought on that.
The only I mean I would push to have to have separate language for us. I'm just wondering what Desi would say about that. They do write such as step siblings and foster children, so perhaps those two examples, we can change that through language. But I don't, have we been here before where we challenged Desi's language?
Yeah, so you don't want to be more restrictive. And I don't think we would. I think we'd be actually, in some way, I think we'd be less restrictive.
Yeah,
They sort of put a bar you've got to go over. And so I think we're fine here. In terms of the way the input's happening right now, common parent, essentially comes down, I think part of what part of where it comes down to them is like sharing a common parent, you know. And that's a biological parent or a legal parent. I think
right,
they mark on the as you said, Jeremy, the such as step siblings and foster children are they're giving examples there. I
right,
think they
Right.
actually missed the mark on those examples because those examples certainly could have a common parent. I mean, can easily have a common parent, right? In
right,
fact,
right.
Sure.
so let me take a stab at some of the language because I think we do want to make sure that, those two examples specifically, actually do fit as siblings,
Right.
but then that's either, through legal guardianship or the language would either be about legal guardianship or it would be about evidence of, legal documentation, providing evidence of the sibling, relationship or the shared parent sort of thing.
Or married, yeah, or it might be a marriage of parents or something. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Um,
Like the only thing I can think of is, I'm sorry, Ben, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead. Good.
The only thing I can think of is the idea that when someone gets remarried, the I don't I don't know the full knowledge, but the new parent would have to adopt the children.
Well,
Maybe I'm wrong. How does
no.
that play, Laura? You don't have to adopt. You're just
No,
legally
no, but that's what I'm
a
saying.
parent.
A step parent does not adopt. I mean, they could, but they don't
Okay.
necessarily. But what you can show is that that the step parent and the parent are married, right? Like that's the
Yeah, I
legal.
thought it would be as simple as that. Common parent.
I mean, the complication there is that there are plenty of families living that way who are not married. And, it is a rabbit hole a little bit in the sense of um it's simpler from a documenting standpoint to say like if, a step parent is married to your parent or something, you're a step sibling or, however you want language, how you ever want to do the language. I know that there are families that live as totally as if that's the case that are not legally married.
Right, right, right,
Right, right.
And, I mean, we can have a definition, right? This is not, this is we can make a definition. It's hard to make it for every possible case.
Right. Okay.
All right, so we'll adjust that and see what, and also, we'll adjust that, see if we can get something that's, just a little clear about, just it's a little bit of threading the needle again on allowing for cases that seem, legal and reasonable, and also then not opening up to just anybody who happens to live in the same household. We don't want
Right.
to, that's a little bit different, okay?
Right.
So going on to 5 here, just to, it wasn't clear in terms of the wording that it would be in the form of a random drawing. Okay? So this just makes it clear the word will there. And then going on to 6 here, again, making that making the changing the timeline for application. You can see that what we had before is application will not be accepted after the first quarter of the school year. We're going to make that earlier. We recommend making that earlier for the reason I said before. That way, this is a planful event. Something that's been in the works. We have a quite a long time frame for applying. Going from the preceding school year. That's whatever 4 or 5 months. I think 5 months, 5.5 months. But then clear that late application will not be considered. Certainly what we have found is that, clarity in these deadlines, clarity in these timelines helps people. You put wiggle room in them, and it leads towards those who can advocate stronger having advantage. And that's something
So Ben, can I just say, I looked at 2 other districts, school choice deadlines, and they're sort of set up. And firstly, they're much earlier than this. They start like in January or December, one district, another district just started like, in February, and end much earlier than August. And so that's one thing. And then just the other thing I want to say is a district I looked at today was very clear. Like you're applying for like grade 6 at this school or high school.
Yeah.
That's it. If you're not applying to those grades, don't apply. Which I just thought was interesting. Like they, at this point in their school year, know where they want to do that. So they just didn't even allow it for elementary in this case. So those are just 2 things. So I'm wondering why ours is so much later.
Yeah, so remember, this is actually making it, although, first of all, I don't have any, I mean, just to be clear, I don't have any, like, I'm not beholden to these dates. Starting earlier is fine, ending earlier is fine, okay? There's no magic on these. What I did want to do is make it earlier than it is now, because right now it extends all the way to the first quarter of the school year, right?
That seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and I felt that it really needs to be earlier. So, shifting it earlier even more, I'm fine with that. And happy to, and we can, if the committee wants to make that change, happy to do that. Okay. And there's real advantage to that. There's real sense to that, basically. the earlier, I mean, starting much earlier, I mean, it's fine. It still doesn't make, it still means folks are waiting for, decision. I think what we're said is we have a June 1st and one that begins, two lotteries, one at the beginning of the year and one at July 1st, I think it is.
But why would there be a lottery at the beginning of the school year? Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, so you got to look at 5 here, okay? And so let's just look at this through this. The first, so this is, if that the requests exceed the numbers. So say we limit it to only, 10 people in 6th grade, okay? I'm making this up,
Right.
obviously. Okay, and there were 14 of them, okay? And we knew that, before July 1st, okay? So DESI says you have to have the first a lottery done by July 1st, okay? And then they say you have to have another one by November 1st, okay? No later than November 1st, if necessary. And what we're saying here is that, and what you've had already is that that second one, if there are more people applying, and there's been more people apply is what I'm getting at, or more
So,
openings.
right. So, but so for me, right, you
Yep.
end it, and then you have your lottery. Like, for me, this feels like, unless there's some reason that benefits us to let this go for longer,
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that, like, you get 14 for 10 spots, you do your lottery, your deadline is this, then you do the drawing and you're done.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm just not sure why this gets prolonged. I'm not sure whose time this takes, right, as we're getting ready for the school year. I'm a little bit lost on the reason to sort of keep extending it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's a good question. And the answer I have right now, okay, let me just show this to you by pausing this. It's in the FAQ. Give me one moment here. Okay, good. You can see this. Let me make it a little
Yep.
bit bigger. So it's here. And so, this language is always open to interpretation. So I'm happy to get more eyes on this.
but I guess I saw that, and that was my question earlier. But I mean, there's something for me that doesn't make sense here with, as we've just pointed out, enrollment changes, enrollment can shift throughout the year. So as the administration, it feels to me like enrollment fluctuates. You're just
Yeah.
not gonna, there's not gonna be a stable number. You have to reach a point where you say, okay, here's our number, right? For people outside, and then we're gonna move forward with the people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I think the scenario that they're trying to, they're sort of dealing with here is this. I mean, here's a scenario. Again, we say there are 10 slots in 6th grade, okay? And by July 1st, 5 people have applied. Okay, so we accept them, obviously, okay? Now, we have further applications now, which speaks to the deadline. And now in those intervening months between July 1st and August 20th, there are, 10 more kids who apply for 6th grade. So now you're 5 above the limit. Okay. And so that's when you do a random drawing in before school starts and say, okay, we're going to, with these 10 kids that now are on the list, we're going to enroll these 5. And that's done by random lottery. Again, so I think that's the sort of scenario they're talking about. I can see where if you say the deadline is, July 1st, then you eliminate that possibilities. I will say this is that it's not uncommon for folks, especially at the high school level, to say we want to come into high school and a little bit later than July 1st. It could be they just moved. It could be they just moved here, but they want to be in Gloucester because they know Gloucester, things like that. So having the other deadline for specific grade levels, I would say, or schools may make sense closer to the beginning of school. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess my question is, I understand it benefits us to allow other students in, but as we as a district, you, our administrators, everybody's working triple time. And I would want to know the benefit, honestly, of this extra drawing to our schools. Like I am focused on using the time of our administrators and all of, our staff in the most effective way possible in ways that benefit our district. And so, I'm just really hesitant to, at this point when we're so focused on improving our achievement and improving our student experience, like on taking time away, for in ways that may not meet that goal.
Help me understand that you're concerned that what's taking the time away. Is it the actual
Well,
lottery?
this is a whole other process. Someone's dealing with this. I don't know if it's Amy. I don't know who's dealing with this, but someone's paying attention to these applications. Someone's doing this, right? Someone's doing this. And, especially if we're getting close to the beginning of the school year, there's so much going on. I'm just trying to understand, already we have a question, right? About, is there going to be room? And we don't have any, and I know we discussed this last year. It's a very tricky, um, it's a very tricky situation to figure out. Like, of course, we want to be open to students who want to come here. That's obviously the truth, and that's what we want. And, um, I think we want to do this in the most streamlined possible to sort of keep on track with getting school going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting the sense that that sounds ridiculous, but I've looked at two other districts and they are like done in the spring. They're not doing this. They are not doing they don't do a second thing. I don't know. Maybe they're not in compliance. Maybe they don't, I suspect they may have more applicants than we do. And maybe that's, I don't know.
Right.
Uh, but, if you think that there is a benefit to Gloucester Public Schools to having this sort of go into the summer, then I'd be open to that.
Mm-hmm. It'd be helpful to have other folks discuss this, chime in. I'm not. So I'm just taking it in, Laura, and trying to understand and process it. But also would help for Jeremy.
Jeremy,
Keith.
Yeah. I'm taking it in as well. What determines the availability? Is it besides DESI standards? Is there, because it says, basically if there are enough seats, then the receiving district must conduct a random selection. So if there are seats available. So I guess I'm wondering what the route is in terms of deciding that the student can't be part of the program, and then we're done. Also, to one of Laura's points about the administration doing work, the March 7th beginning deadline from the other. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're both March 7th. They're both
Yeah.
March 7th. Yeah.
Is that because administration needs that much time? If it was earlier, would that make someone's job easier? Ben, I take it that you see it's sort of an arbitrary date that we can reset it if we think there's something more beneficial or prudent. So I guess my question is how are the seats determined, and then also how much time is needed for the work to be done. Maybe it's not, maybe if it's the same work done over months of time, then it might not be, one administrator's load to bear.
Yeah.
So,
But
so
it's not
those are
the
my
same
two.
work. I mean, from my perspective, people coming from out of district and people coming from within districts is different work.
Sure.
Right. That's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, and the people coming from out of district is less administrator heavy than the people in district, honestly. And because there are different numbers and there's also different considerations or concerns rather, maybe. So Jeremy, in terms of you want to have the window open for application when families are considering or thinking about these things,
Mm-hmm.
If you do it too far in advance, it doesn't hurt anything, okay? But it doesn't necessarily help things, Because if I'm considering it in January, then I still would just wait till March to apply, But if you had it, let's say, January to March, you've actually like advantaging only the people who are like the most heads up, the most with it, the most advanced thinkers, or forward thinkers, the folks who just have their lives are happening, way out ahead of them, basically, okay? Because most families aren't, I mean, not, I shouldn't say most, I mean, if you're having a change like this, it may not be happening in the January, February timeframe, okay? Um, so so that's why, if the timeline works for us, later is okay, because it doesn't harm, you know, doesn't doesn't get in the way of family, okay? In terms of the numbers, that is also honestly, it's not arbitrary, but it's a matter of like where do you want kids to enter and maybe where you don't want kids to enter.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Like I don't really think we want kids to enter in kindergarten through choice because we have to, we want, sorry, we don't want to, there's a risk of giving folks from outside the district an advantage over those folks inside the district, because of timelines, and we don't want to do that at all, So I would say very clearly, going forward, that we don't accept school choice at kindergarten, and we may want to consider only starting school choice at middle school and above, honestly. Some of our schools and classrooms are crowded enough that, we don't want to risk that. I don't think at this point we have good enough information to say, we would do it at this elementary school and not that elementary school. I don't think that's a good way of going about it.
Okay.
We could, but we could, but I don't think that's the case. I think we're likely to do it in certain grades. And that's got to be done in going forward in greater consultation with principals and administration, that sort of stuff.
Okay. And you were talking about Plum Cove having 20, 24, 25 students. The amount of students, that's from the contract saying they're working towards so many students. Is that correct? Is that correct to say, or is it a DESE suggestion?
So that's sort of where we have been and where we want to be. I mean, I think we want to be in the, don't necessarily want to be in the 14, 15 range. You don't want to be in the 25, 26 range or 24, 25 range, The sweet spot is somewhere, 20, 21, 22 is totally fine, but and then we have some, we have some guidance on kindergarten about where we want to be, but nothing set. There's no set in stone policy for the school committee. Okay. It's sort of where we have been, where we want to be. And I would say, 20, 21, 22 is a sweet spot. Below, a little bit below, that's fine. It's great too. You don't want to be too far below, too far above. Yeah. And that's just in terms of supporting students, managing classroom. That's what that's about.
Right. Classroom management.
Yeah.
Keith, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah. Hold on. Am I on mute? Hold on a
No, we
second.
hear you. We hear you, Keith. We hear you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was on another page. Yeah. I just want to. I was considering if our intra-district, our intra-district, placements from out of the catchment areas, they're gonna. I just want to make sure that they are not at a a disadvantage to getting placed over, say, intra-district placements.
Yeah. They aren't now by the way we practice it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And if we were going to make a I think July 1st lottery, okay, what
Mm-hmm.
I think what we would do is we would um, say, no to folks coming outside the district for kindergarten. Like it can't happen basically.
Yeah.
But you are, you know, for kindergarten, you are disadvantaging because that would be an earlier deadline. Because remember, the kindergarten
Yes.
deadline for intra-district is later than the deadline for 1 through,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
What you could do
Yeah.
is you could say, we will have a kindergarten out of district school choice happens after the intra-district one happens, So you could say,
Yeah, and that would be like into the school year.
if we want to go down that route, you might, yeah, I mean, it's pretty close to the school year. Yeah, it definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and so we could have exclusionary practices if it was, I think one of the criteria were, full classrooms, right?
yeah, no,
To, to
what you do is you say ahead of time, we're
mhm.
not going to consider applications for that grade or those grades.
Because one of the criteria was, yeah, I'm trying to remember 'em all. There were three. One of them was programming, like changes in what that was my other question. W- give me an example of a program. Like, are we talking about a special needs program or?
I don't believe we are because you can't know that ahead of time. I think I
Right.
know.
No, I know. I mean, like, give me an example of what that means in
I
practice,
would
like
say it's
program.
probably something like a career voc tech program, that type of thing.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that's the best example I can come up. You could have
Mhm.
an international baccalaureate program, which is in some
Mhm.
schools, that sort of thing. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think those are probably two good examples of what they mean by program.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. My main concern is that I want to advantage the say the siblings that or the intra district placements requests that we get in the timelines for both of the inter and the intra
Yep, yep,
students.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
Um, yep.
Ben, I just want to play a little devil's advocate, and Amy, this may be a question for you too. Um, I know from the length of time that we've been talking about this and how we started talking about this and what Desi came back with, that, there's pros and cons to accepting inter-district school choice. And I, just playing devil's advocate, I want to understand the benefit to the district for accepting um, interdistrict school choice.
I mean, one benefit is enrollment.
Mhm.
It helps our enrollment some. In a place like Rockport helps them a whole lot. Okay, so we're not in that, right? The other piece is, we get some fantastic students who are looking for our programs. We have a number of examples of, especially high school students, okay, who come to Gloucester High because, it could be the robotics program, engineering. I think one example we had Voc Tech recently. It could also
Yeah.
be sports. It could be, music or, drama, that sort of thing. So those are the types of things, especially at the high school. Yeah, we can get some really fabulous students, who really add to our school community. I think that's where you see, and that could also happen at younger ages too. So that's the real benefit, I would say, and that's a real benefit. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good benefit. I just sort of, I'm putting it out there. I mean, I personally know families, Gloucester is a place where people, even if people move out, they like to send their kids here sometimes.
Right.
Um, so that's tricky. And elementary has that. Parents who are from here who want their kids to go here.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but I can really see, I see Keith's point about like wanting to make sure the intra get to go where their siblings are or where, and also, um, help us manage the sort of numbers at, there does seem to me to be something where we've got 4 elementary schools. So if you've got choice into elementary, what are you offering, right? Or which are you offering? It's a little more complicated than middle or high where there's one school. So
And
it's
there's
just,
less flexibility at the younger grades in terms of, class size, that sort of stuff. Where in the high school, middle school, there's lots of flexibility, always is,
right. Yeah. So anyway, that's just me pondering this whole thing. But yeah, I
And,
think,
and I think,
anyway, I would still not want it to go as late as, I agree that it's important to have kids there at the beginning of the year, and uh that's for students and teachers, and culture. Um so does it
I think one thing on this is that, I think enrolling, there's just a much more variable around kindergarten enrollment than there's in any other grade. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a order of magnitude. I mean, it's just much more variable.
Yeah.
It changes every year. Once you have a kindergarten classroom set and that year goes by, the numbers as you go through elementary then stay pretty similar. There aren't fluctuations of 5 or 10 kids in a 4 or 5 kids in a classroom. So enrolling people to inter-district school choice at first grade is a much more straightforward thing than doing in kindergarten. Much more straightforward. And so I really, and this would be an administrative decision. We could easily limit so we don't do that at kindergarten. And there's I think some good logic behind that.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm hearing is firm deadline for when's it's closed. I mean, when we don't accept applications afterward. We could go earlier. This sounds like, and we want to make sure we in no way disadvantage the intra-district families, the families, and which are just obviously just elementary school families.
Right. Yeah. And then Ben, you wanted to look at the
Oh, yeah.
changes in April.
Thank you very much. Yep. So let me just go down to that and
Got that here too.
let me pull it up on the screen. One moment.
Amy, you're so quiet.
She's on mute.
I know she is.
I'm on the third policy.
I know you are. I know you are. It had your sort of signature slideshow.
Okay. So number 7 here is, again, we did not include this because let me explain why we didn't. Okay. So sorry, for Jeremy and Keith, what this is about is this one here, sorry. This was a change considered, okay? And what's about it is a family is in Gloucester, they move out of Gloucester partway through the year, and they want to remain in the Gloucester Public Schools, okay? This is what got us into sort of a difficult space before. Is we allowed families to stay here to finish the year, okay? And this was like sort of a February, March timeframe, March, April timeframe. I think it was March timeframe. Yeah, because it was April. Yeah, so it had to be before April. They considered that acceptance into school choice. Okay, that was not our intention. But once it's accepted into school choice, as you already know now, like then you're in for the rest of your time. Okay, so the notion that we are accepting it into school choice, and there isn't a way I can see that you don't. Again, at the same time, what Desi's clear about is you can't accept anyone into school choice other than the process you developed. So the process we've been talking about for the past, whatever, half an hour or so, okay? Like we can only accept people into school choice through that process, right? So we can't accept them at this point in the year type of thing, okay, in school choice. Nor can we make them believe in any way they are accepted in school choice, because then they are for the rest of the time, okay? Rest of their time in schools, okay? So I don't know if the committee wants to consider this and figure out if there's a way that we can allow folks who stay in, if they get to a certain point, April, May, whatever, whatever it might be. But we haven't included that yet, is what I'm getting at. Does that sort of, so really the question of the committee is, do you want us to see if we can figure out a way to allow families, if they choose to stay and finish the year out, and being really, really crystal clear that they're not part of school choice, So should we see if we can figure out some way to go about that and propose something to you?
So this
Me
is a
personally, huh? Okay, who's gonna start? we
Go
got
ahead,
we got
Keith.
nobody to point to anyone.
Yeah, well, I'm the chair, so ask me and then I'll say if you can speak.
Yeah, I'll raise my hand.
Okay, Keith.
Okay, that's what I should be doing. Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that if a student began the year in a certain grade and their family moves out of district, I think we should do everything in our abilities to make it easy for them to remain for the remainder of the year. Like for the example, if it's a 12th grader, yeah, senior in high school, all of a sudden, there might be some emergency situation where they got to move to another town, their family, and the students is like, well, I thought I was going to walk with my friends, and now I'm going to have to graduate in a different high school. I want to avoid that at all cost. However we can do it.
Okay, Jeremy.
So the scenario here is just that the family needs to move away, but they want to keep the kid enrolled. Um, so uh, so I would want to make that as easy as possible. But then what you were saying, Ben, is that this sets a precedent for school choice. Is
Right.
that
It complicates the matter of school choice quite a bit. Okay. Doesn't mean we can't figure out a way to work around it, but I haven't figured out quite yet. Otherwise I'd be proposing it to you, because they can't be part of school choice. Okay. Because they can't be accepted into school choice through another mechanism, another process. Okay. That's just really clear about that. And so, you know, what then is and it, could just be as simple as a very clear school committee policy that allows for it, okay, and says then, uh, you know, you aren't part of school choice. We make that clear to folks, that sort of stuff. I'm just not quite, I haven't looked into it yet. I wanted to check with the committee before we did.
So are you,
okay?
Jeremy, you good? Should I go?
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I agree that we should allow a student to finish the year. I I agree that, it would have to almost be like a courtesy or if we don't want it to be school choice, it would have to be, since it can't be school choice, it would have to be some sort of like, yeah, some sort of a policy that is a courtesy really to our families and students. Um, my question is, as we came up with this in April of 23, um, we were we were talking about sort of if, it was like if they'd finished the first term, this was like to finish the second term, right? It was sort of like you can't leave in October, if you move in October. So that's one question, is where we would want the date to be. That's the first question I have. And the second is the second part of this, which I understand it cannot be part of school choice anymore. However, this issue of serious disciplinary problems,
Yeah.
again, I see this as a courtesy we would want to offer our families, to allow them to finish the year, to, as Jeremy said, and as Keith said, to walk down to walk on the field, provided that these are students who are able to, respect our school culture and our attendance and disciplinary issues. Now, I'm sure that's the vast majority of these families. But I don't know. I would actually like that to be a part of this, to say, like, we welcome you. We hope that you will stay and finish the year if you want to. But with that comes an expectation of, um, you know, of not having major disciplinary or safety issues, etc. Now, I don't know where that puts us legally, but I do see
Yeah.
that, but I do see that as this is a courtesy, how do I want to say, I don't want to say a courtesy, but it is sort of a courtesy. It's something we want to do to support families, and in return, that would be something that supports our schools. Keith and then Jeremy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with having that language in there about attendance and disciplinary actions if we're removing it from other school, from the intra and inter, or actually whatever policy it was. I think it was like inter school districts choice, where Desi says we can't consider these things that we would have otherwise in a policy that wouldn't strictly be school choice. I don't think that is a comfortable position for me to allow to remain. Um, you know, it's if the students are already in our district and all of a sudden they're moving, and well, hey, let's look at your disciplinary record. No, you can't be here anymore. Um, if they were still in our school at that moment up until they were leaving, and I can't imagine this is going to be a big problem either way if the student has maybe there is a rare student, but I don't see this being a problem that we can't handle.
Okay, Jeremy.
We already no, let me just finish. We already have disciplinary actions for these type of things, correct?
I mean, yeah, we have there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we
Yeah.
always.
So why would we exclude a student
Because this is a
who?
student who no longer, so I'm just going to say, Keith, because this is no longer a student to whom this is the best, they're no longer a member of our district. So we have a right, we have an obligation to students who live in Gloucester, or who are choice into Gloucester, both, right? To give them the best possible education and to deal with all these things.
Well, sorry. Go ahead.
But
Sorry.
once they are no longer
Yeah.
in our district, we do not have the same obligations. That's my feeling.
Yeah. But at the same time, these same students may want to apply for school choice in the future, subsequent year. So
Sure, that's different. They could do that.
all of a sudden, instead of allowing them to apply for school choice, we're applying this prohibited practice of excluding a student that would apply for school choice.
No, Keith, you're misunderstanding. For school choice, we cannot have that in there.
Yes.
They have
Yes.
every right. They can leave our schools and apply the next year. No question. But if we are offering a courtesy, sorry, Jeremy, if we are saying we will let you stay on our own accord, on our own choice, right? As a courtesy that we have no legal right to, no legal obligation to do. From my perspective, not saying it's the only perspective, but from my perspective, we can put stipulations on that. Anyway, Jeremy.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of courtesy. I also think it can fall under hardship. So if a family, has a hardship and they want to keep the kid with their class, I think disciplinary action and attendance issues and I forget what the third one was. It
Safety,
was
I think.
yeah, safety. I think having them stay and deal, the one kid, well, a lot of kids have attendance issues. So I think, we extend them to stay, and then we deal with it. We have credit recovery, if they have attendance issues and they want to finish that way, they're just down the line of things that would go with educating the student. So I'm wide open to make it a welcoming, to have our schools be more welcoming in that situation. And just if that's just a Gloucester thing, I would, after conversation, I would approve that. And
It
maybe
sounds like
other
sounds like we
yeah,
do need to
other
find
communities
something.
may do that too.
I think you do need, I mean, just in terms of, I think and I'm not sure January 31st is the right answer here. I think you do need a date after which this is allowable. Because if it's earlier in the year, now senior, I think so let me put seniors aside for a second, okay? What you really want is you want that child to go to that new district and start making their life there. Okay. If it's in September, October, November, December, I can make a case for January easily. Okay. If it's second term or if it's April, May, I think there's real value in finishing the year. Okay. So, I think like I really would advise, and we'll come back with a draft. Okay. I really would advise the committee on having a second semester, essentially a date on this. Okay. Because even you're talking about middle school or high school, being there for a full term, the second half of the year, a full term, is really valuable time for them to, get going on relationships, all those sorts of things, But so I just wouldn't. Yeah, so I think that's clear to folks what I mean by that. I don't. I hear what you're saying about the, safe concerns, attendance issues, disciplinary problems. Okay, I don't know if that's defensible, and that's what we'll have to look into. Okay, I think it's a real question. If it's not defensible in any other form, we can't keep kids out of our schools for that, whether it's school choice or otherwise.
Right.
I'm not sure it can apply here. I think another piece on that is, while they were here in our schools, and so, but obviously there's a significant change because they're no longer residents, right? So, but I'm not sure we can change the rules for who we accept, based on that. But let's look into.
Okay, and I would say we could take out attendance, like, I mean, we could take out some of it and just make it like serious safety or disciplinary to me, um, is something different than attendance. But yeah,
Right.
I think it's worth looking at, but I understand what you're saying. I don't know, for me, I'm just really focused on like the safety and well-being of our schools and our students and our teachers and our paras. And like, I want us to be an open, welcoming place. And yeah, like I feel like it's sometimes a hard line.
Yeah. Mhm. I understand that. Yep. Get that.
Keith, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just I guess one more thing. Yeah, I mean, like as far as a courtesy, as far as the language goes, I mean, I'm looking at this more of like a de facto choice student, where not by like official application, but just by situation, where they would have to formalize and get accepted subsequently.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they may or may not want to do that, but we would be interrupting curriculum. I mean, the halfway part of the year, I think makes sense in a way, where you finish the term, maybe you're in like the upper grades where you completed a class and now it's a good break off point mid year, but we'd be interrupting curriculum. I just kind of want to avoid that. If somebody's like in a class and they're getting instruction from a teacher and they find the instruction really valuable, and then all of a sudden that's gone.
Right.
It's just not a good situation. And I how often does this really happen, honestly, compared to choice students in general?
This will happen. It varies. This will happen. I mean, you know, I think this year we're talking about 2 years ago, there was actually a surprisingly, large number, and that was like four maybe. Okay.
Four.
It doesn't happen
Yeah,
too
so
often.
that's an extraordinary number.
That's a sort of a higher number, but it's definitely, it happens every year that kids move
Yes.
away, families move away during a part of the year, second half of the year especially. Um,
Yeah.
and then how many people request to stay, that varies. So, but you can get,
Yes.
um, so it's, it's not a small amount. It's a small amount of families, but it's, matters to each of those families. But I think we're looking
Yeah.
at 4 or 5 at that point. It's probably something like that on average a year, maybe a few less, give or take a few.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're thinking about a very small number of students. Like you say, some of the families might move out and not consider this, and
Right.
others will. And where like maybe the average is one or two or three that decide they want to stay for the remainder of the year. And making these like conditions, I'm still not. I don't think I'm going to be comfortable with these like conditions when we already have mechanisms to deal with that in-house with students that are already enrolled.
So we'll look into this, and we'll also look and see what other districts do
Yeah.
about this. The idea of kids who are moving, families move out, but they want to stay. We'll see if we can get some language on it, see if we can have any sort of parameters on it as well. But it'll take a little bit for us to look into other places. And if any of you look in other places and let me know about it, you can send it to me and Kelly. That's also helpful. But let's see what's possible on this one.
Great,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
So, got a few things on this, which I already mentioned, clarifying step siblings and foster children, those legal guardianship there, going forward on a firm deadline, maybe adjusting the deadlines a little bit here, excuse me, and then, looking at what we can do about those families or students whose families move away, midway through the year as well. So,
Right, and I think also limiting levels. You were talking about maybe not having it allowed for kindergarten.
yeah, so
That wouldn't
that's
be in our
more.
policy. I understand that wouldn't be in our policy. That would be just at the administrative, right? But I
Yeah,
just,
yeah. So the draft already has that in there.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
already
great.
that part in there.
Okay.
These are just adjustments to the draft we have. So let me pause there, and if it's okay, Laura, hand it off to Amy.
Yes, of
Oh,
course.
Title 9. Okay, great. Amy, all yours.
All right, thank you. So I came to you in September, I think on September 11th, and proposed new Title IX regulations that came into effect in August of 2024. And that has changed. So I'm going to share with you some of the changes. Let's see.
Can you say again, Amy, which policy number this is for
This is
us?
AC.
AC, correct. Okay, great.
And
Yep.
can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. So just kind of going back down history a little bit, in 2020, there were amendments from the former administration that required new Title IX laws or regulations that went into effect August 14th of 2020. The regulations imposed a prescriptive grievance process and created a much more detailed and resource-intensive investigation process. Excuse me. They used to have a single investigator model, and that was eliminated in 2020 to have a multiple person model or Title IX team, where it was required that there was an investigator, and then there was a decision maker, and there was an appeals officer. So there's more people involved in a Title IX investigation. In 2020, there also was a higher standard of what constituted sexual harassment. Districts are required to adopt that grievance process as part of the requirements. So I want to remember that what we did in 2020 because we are coming back to that. In 2024, so last summer, in April, but they were finalized in August. The U.S. Department of Education published its final revised Title IX regulations, and we all got to work in changing our policies. I'd like to say not all school districts did. Some school districts have not updated them in the fall, and they therefore do not need to do anything right now. But because we were on top of it, we need to look at what is happening now. Where in 2025, the regulations ended and we are instructed to go back to the old regulations of 2020. So what does this mean for Gloucester? It means that since we did update our policies and we were on top of everything, we need to revert back to our previous policy, which is what is before you today. This includes Title IX policies. Those districts that updated the policies to confirm or revise and go back to the last version of Title IX. And the procedures, which is not part of policy, but I want you to know our procedures will go back to having a detailed fair hearing grievance procedure with specific timelines, definitions, and requirements, and go back to that Title IX investigative team with a decision maker and an appeals person and all of that. Our notices and handbooks will have to be updated once the policy is adjusted to comply with the 2020 regulations, and especially with the respect to definitions and procedures. And then we will again train our staff in Title IX procedures, just to make sure everybody's clear, because it has been a little bit of a moving target, particularly this year, on how we're going back to the old or the last version of Title IX. This training most likely will take place over the summer. I'm thinking of our summer leadership, just because that's a place we can all come together and share our questions and experiences and talk about what's happening. So it's just, we're going back to the old policy. If you want more details of what that means, I'm happy to answer those questions, but yeah.
So, Keith, you have your hand up?
No, you go ahead, Laura.
Well, okay. All I was going to say is like this, I remember when we switched, and I remember that there's now multiple people who have to be trained, and there's a whole system. And then I remember when we switched. So, but my thing with this kind of thing is always like, we don't have a choice. Like, we have to make this change,
Right.
right? This is coming from Washington. So, it just my read on this then and now is it just makes it many more layers and more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what we've been doing for 4 years prior, and it's what we'll go back to.
Yep. Okay, Keith.
Yeah, I guess that was essentially my same question. So yeah, it like Laura said, that it's a much more involved process between sexual discrimination and harassment.
So
And
this
I
focus,
guess,
yep,
huh? Go ahead.
go ahead.
No. I wasn't really saying anything.
Okay, so this focuses more on the sexual harassment.
Uh-huh.
And the procedure is very different, where it used to be, and now will be again, once this is approved, is that there'll be a team of people that kind of goes through the Title IX process. For example, Roberta does the investigations, or did the investigations, and I was not supposed to be in knowledge or knowing what's happening in the investigation, because I was the decision maker. So after all the evidence and the hearings were complete, it would come to me and I would be able to make the decision one way or the other. When we made the change in August, excuse me, and really September when it came to you, it went down to a one-person model where somebody could investigate and make the decision all in one. The benefit of that is we actually were able to have a little bit of a collaboration. Roberta and I could talk things through, but she just would be able to lean on somebody else instead of whoever the decision maker is on that.
Yeah. So I would love to, we're going to bring this to the full committee, I assume. And I would love to hear Melissa's take on this, because it does not seem normal to me. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit confused at this point. So right now, Roberta going forward would work in isolation or not?
So she could have somebody that helps with the investigation, but the decision maker cannot be part of the investigation.
Right. Okay. See, that's my real question. So yeah, I mean,
This is actually
essentially,
more of a team.
uh
The 2024 version, the same person could investigate and decide.
yeah.
She did it. She was able, obviously, you can always reach out to legal counsel. You can reach out to a colleague that is
Mhm.
knowledgeable, things like that, support each other. But
Yeah.
this makes it more of more people involved in the determination if it's a sexual Title
Yeah,
IX.
yeah. I guess my issue is that I want to respect like the separation of the process, because like in the real world, like outside of school, you don't have the judge talking to the investigators before it comes to their court, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's
It
what the 2020 version and now the
Yeah.
2025 version is aligning with what you're saying.
Yes. Okay. I think I like that. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Jeremy, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I just see it as a clarification of a multiple person process rather than the sole investigator. And we have to go by it. So
Exactly.
I don't know, I don't know their thinking, but it does seem to, I don't know, to square more with logic than the previous.
Oh, you're
You're
muted,
on
brother.
mute.
One thing that there are different definitions and different
Right.
you know what you can and cannot investigate. Okay. And so that's which, we can go over with you more, or go over the full committee more, but it still comes down to we're beholden to adopt what both the administration and the courts have reasserted, basically.
Right. So their definition of things like a hostile work environment is slightly different. And in the slide presentation that I gave in November and is also attached here, I kept it there for your reference, is also, definition has changed. And then who is protected under the new version is like, for example, pregnancy has always been protected, but pregnancy related symptoms has not. In the 2024, that was added. Now it is off. And there's some gender identity differences there as well. But again, that is kind of handed to us.
Amy, that's what I was just looking for in your slides. Can you just tell me what the gender identity, I'm looking at the new scope of the Title IX regulations. Is that from September? Or is
I'm
that?
gonna share my screen again so I can point out what.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking for.
Yep. 1 second here. Okay, so on slide 5, these are the things that were changed. Now remember,
Right.
it's almost the opposite of what we're saying. This is what put in the 2024 version, that it was not just about sexual harassment. It added sexual discrimination as well as based on sexual harassment. So sexual harassment is now a larger scope, so it made it a larger scope rather than more narrow.
So now we're going back to the more narrow one.
Now
Right,
so
now we're going back to more narrow. So it made it a larger scope, so it's catching more discrimination topics. The sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy and pregnancy-related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So it broadened the scope of what we would look at for sexual harassment, and it changed the definition of hostile work environment. And now we're going back to the more narrow definition of that. They may not be able to treat people differently based on sex in a manner that subjects them to more de minimis harm. These were other things, and that pregnancy-related conditions were added. The other additions were parental and family marital status. There was new protections. Those are taken out of the old, now new version. The responsibilities of the Title IX coordinator have changed, and we talked about that quite a bit already. The requirements for the complaint and respondent for an IEP and 504, so that leaned in a little more, whether a person was on an IEP or 504. And then again, that single model versus the multi-model for investigating. When an informal resolution may be offered, that timeline changes a little bit. And conduct, let's see, so this number 10 is significant as far as the 2024 version broadened it to things that happened really anywhere, any program activity, or even outside of the United States. The school was responsible for investigating and taking care of that. The old, now new model makes it more narrow as where things are happening. And then these are the differences for the hostile work environment. So in 2020 and again in 2025, an unwelcome conduct, a hostile work environment is defined by an unwelcome conduct determined by a reasonable person to be so severe and pervasive and objectively offensive that it effectively denies a person equal access to recipient's education, employment, program, or activity. So that is what we're currently under.
Right.
Or
Okay.
will currently be under. For 2024, it was expanded to unwelcome sex-based conduct that, based on the totality of circumstances, is subjectively and objectively offensive and is so severe or pervasive that it limits or denies a person's ability to participate in or benefit from the recipient's education, program, or activity. and therefore creates a hostile work environment. So those are, so the overarching is it made the definitions and the responsibilities more broad, and now we're narrowing it back more down to what we
Yes.
used to have.
Keith, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So, okay, the 2020, it relies on subjective interpretation, subjective. And in 2024, it mentions both subjective and objective, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so we're going back to 2020 where it's a subjective determination.
Yes.
Okay. I that is, I guess, by law what we're required to do, but I just have to say I'm not comfortable with subjective judgments, honestly.
So do we vote tonight on this or to bring it up to the full committee? To recommend to the full committee? Because unfortunately, despite our misgivings or whatever we feel, we need to, we did this in 2020 and we need to do it again.
It's a revised policy, so you don't need to have more than one
Okay.
one reading. Stephanie, you there? Can you? or
I
am I-
am. So you don't need to have a second reading on this. You can just bring it right to the committee, school committee for approval. Okay?
Okay, so
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
so I would like to make a motion that we recommend this updated policy AC regarding changes to the Title IX regulations to the full committee.
Second.
And we need to do a roll call vote, right, Stephanie?
Yes. Miss Weason,
Yes.
Mr. McKean,
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not know if this is on the agenda for tomorrow night. So,
It can come up under subcommittee report. So
Okay.
it doesn't have to be listed under action. When you do your report, it can be taken up then and a motion can be made.
okay, well, we'll see. Do you guys,
And so Laura, the subcommittee report is on the agenda.
yes,
Okay.
no, I know that.
Okay,
I
good.
know
Okay,
the
good.
subcommittee report is on the agenda. I just, are you ready to make, I mean, do you want to make a presentation on this tomorrow night?
It's, so Amy, you could certainly,
Yeah,
right?
I probably would just move those 3 slides that I went back to afterwards that you had questioned for into the others, and that would be the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, my suggestion personally would just be to say like, what's happening with this one? You know, I find it a little confusing to go between the two.
Okay.
I don't know. I could talk,
Can
we
adjust.
could talk. We could
I mean,
talk about
I think it's helpful to, just as we did here at the end, is saying, is not just flip it, say, this is where we were, February, in the fall, now we're going back to this, and this is what we had before. It's just flip them.
Yeah, just flip them. Just, yeah, because I
Okay.
want to know more like what we're now, like what's happening now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
That would, for me, that's just easier for me to
And
understand.
that's also up to the committee, if the committee would like to consider it tomorrow, they can. If they want to wait, that's fine too. So
Right.
but Amy will be ready, obviously, to go.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
we'll do that for the committee.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get that. Yep.
Yeah, just one more. I think I was okay. I think I'm less confused now going 2020 to 2024. But so we're going back to 2020, right? And in the 2020 language on hostile work environment, we're going back to it needs to be determined to be objectively offensive. So I'm more comfortable with that than, yeah. Okay. So
Yep.
it does include objective judgment.
Right.
It's,
Eliminate-
yes, it says unwelcome conduct determined
Yeah.
by a reasonable person to be so severe and pervasive and objectively offensive
Mhm.
that it effectively denies a person equal access to the recipient's education,
Yeah.
employment, program, or
Okay.
activity.
Okay.
It's more
I think I'm a
objective.
little more comfortable with that than the 2024. I think. Okay. Thank you.
A reasonable person, yes, okay.
But here's the thing.
Honestly, yeah, that is quite subjective right there too.
Exactly right. I
Reasonably.
mean,
Exactly right.
That
Yeah.
is definitely subjective. So but
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Is there anything else, team? Looks like we got through our whole thing, so I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Yep.
Miss Weason,
Yes?
Mr. McKean,
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you all.
Amy.
Very-
Thank you,
Yeah,
Stephanie.
thank
Thank
you.
you. See you tomorrow night. Thank
Thank
you.
See you
you.
tomorrow.
Looking
Bye.
forward to it.
Bye.
Bye.